Hello, everybody. My name is Nicholas Alexander Beto, and I'm going to present to you my problem and purpose presentation on ADHD. So, first is my guiding question. Uh, and my guiding question sort of mirrored what the extent to which ADHD is a issue in my classroom, which is how can teachers create a cohesive and hardworking elementary school environment for students with ADHD. Um, my students, I have 7 students with a diagnosis of ADHD, and I have more that come into my classroom for intervention for English language arts. So I interact with students who have ADHD all the time, and knowing that it's not their fault, and knowing that they work so hard still, is very hopeful for me. But all of the issues that brings with it is a really big issue for my room, and I found that any other topic that I thought about researching always just guided back to this. So why did I choose this topic? Well, my students have any of the following things. They and each one of them usually stands out in one of these, as far like they're more prevalent in one of these than the rest, but they still have all the other ones. So like work avoidant, I have one student who will not do work. Um, and some of them do it from time to time. Hyperactivity, especially at the end of the day when medication wears off. Distractions, which is the biggest one, because that causes students to sort of that takes away from learning time, and it also leads into another one, which is peer to peer conflict, uh, because people don't like the distractions. Physicality, but mostly like not negative on its intention, but usually just excessive touching and chasing and picking each other up, and just things that don't belong in the classroom. Out of control behavior, um, difficulty following instructions, which is one of the bigger ones too, because I'll say, hey, students, give me a thumbs up if you understand, and everybody will give me a thumbs up, and then I have a majority of those 7 that are like, what are we doing? And excessive talking, which is true for one of the students who just will hallway classroom when I'm giving instructions when another student is answering, just has a tough time um, stopping themselves from saying things. And so all of these together sort of create an environment that's really hard. And so what is the significance of solving these? Well, I really want to maximize our learning in our classroom. Our test scores are really, really high, and so I'm really happy about that. Way higher than expected, and I expected, and so I'm really happy to see at least academically things are working. But I feel like it could be even higher if we didn't have so many distractions from ADHD. Um, Equitable learning environment, making sure those students have the same learning as a student without ADHD. And I really feel really bad for some of my students who just feel like that it gets in such of a way that they can't complete work, and therefore they're not getting the same the same thing, and it's really not their fault. And also helping students meet classroom expectations, which part of that, as we'll see, is my fault, but a lot of that did have to do with and continues to have to do with them not being able to turn the ADHD valve off and be able to be more in control of who they are and their bodies. Um, and so how did this problem emerge? A lot of things that sort of pancaked onto one another. I come from early childhood education, and so the first two have to do with each other, which is overestimating their self control. When in early childhood you expect them to not have control of themselves, I thought fourth graders would have a lot more control, but I wasn't expecting all the amount of ADHD to be in my classroom, and I also kind of in general just overestimated what they needed, and that led to me not establishing correct expectations. And I sort of had to spend the first semester clawing things back and trying to get that control back. Um, and a lot of that just had to be with me being a first year teacher. I don't know how avoidable it was because I it was just a first year teacher, and a lot of this was me spending 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. changing my classroom environment to fit the needs of the students because I just didn't know what to expect. Um, and all of that sort of, as things got off to kind of a rocky start at the beginning of the year, working with my instructional coach, it's better. But now I still have the same thing, which is I don't think, not everybody was diagnosed with ADHD when my classroom started, and not everybody had an IEP. And so when my classroom list was made, I don't think it was understood that I would have so much in my room, but that's how it is. And I think there's only one student outside of my room that has ADHD. So, yeah, as far as in the grade level, I mean to say. And so that is interesting. But sometimes that's just the way it goes, and so I have to sort of adapt, and that's why I was really excited to do this research. So how does ADHD research compare to my classroom? Well, it shows that I could be doing more. I definitely could be doing more, and we'll see that here in a minute. But also, it showed me that the problem will, if it continues, I'll continue to have distractions and less learning, and it'll definitely be less equitable. When I was doing the mirror, kind of looking at what my classroom looked like compared to my research, I saw that low self-esteem. My students tend to be with ADHD tend to be underachieving. They tend to develop social problems, especially when it comes to like they're distracting another student who's trying to learn, and also being at risk for school inclusion, especially when they get in trouble because their behavior's a little out of control. And I saw that there was a lot of all the behaviors that they sort of said happened in my classroom. I found 4 really good sources that I used. Each one of them provided a little bit of a different piece of it. Within an IHS study, it showed me that students have a 4 times more of a variance in achievement compared to the average attention student. And so it showed me that a lot of it's out of my control because the difference is the support that the school provides. So it showed me that I can do things in my classroom to help them that would actually make a difference, but it also showed me that, hey, sometimes there's just one of me and I don't have a pair in my classroom, and so the school support is really what it is, and so I have to sort of meet both of those and at their best and figure out how I can make my classroom work with that knowledge. With the CDC, I learned that it requires specific plans, and so that's something that I plan to implement for my students that don't have an IEP, is creating more of a specific plan with the families. And then it taught me a lot about kind of the basics about ADHD in a classroom environment and how much that positivity has to do with ADHD and confidence and things like that. With the ADHD Foundation, that was actually my most useful source. It had so much information in it that really helped me with a lot of great ideas like step-by-step activities and how to create less distractions for students, like putting a work desk near a wall. And then the William and Mary was a little more on the psychological side, but in the university side, it went into a lot of great definitions and different kinds of ADHD. But it also gave a lot of good advice, just like the ADHD Foundation did, on how to give visual models of completed work and things like that. Overall, all of these sources I'm going to use for my future projects and in my classroom currently. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.